Hello and welcome to a brand new series here on Overcourt Gaming. We're following a young man, and here he is. He's standing at the Maxall petrol station in the small village. He's had a rough week. His uncle passed away. He attended the funeral and he learned that he had been named as the inheritor of his uncle's farm. Now, it's been a long time since he'd actually seen his uncle. He used to spend summers on the farm helping out his uncle, working on the farm and really quite enjoying it. But some years ago, his father and his uncle had a falling out, and the summers on the farm had stopped. The young man had since then moved on and started living in the city until he received these disturbing news. Now, when the young man met with the solicitors about inheriting this farm at a place called Ballincraig Estate, he really wasn't quite sure what that meant, especially when he learned that there were some conditions attached to the estate. Basically, the young man would have to commit himself to living on and running the farm for 1 year, after which he would be free to do with it what he wanted. Failing that, the farm would be sold and all the money would be donated to charity instead. So the young man decided to at least go and take a look at the farm. He wasn't really sure whether he was ready to trade in his more comfortable, perhaps, city life for a small farm with what he remembers fondly from his childhood summers, but nevertheless, he hasn't been farming very much for quite a long time. And just to top things off, as he was traveling towards the farm and the estate, he managed to miss the bus. So the estate, or the solicitor had told him that there would be somebody here to meet him, but he'd missed the local bus, and now it's 2 hours later. It's gone dark. It doesn't really look like there's anybody around, but the young man has at least got a flashlight, and he seems to recall that the farm was somewhere down along the road, but it has been a while, and parts of the town looks a bit different. Certainly wasn't a spa shop in the town back then as there is now. But here's a fish and chips, and here's a man waving. Here we are. Hello, says Trevor. It's good to see that you made it. I reckon you might have missed the bus and would be on the next one. The young man feels a little confused. You know me? He says. Sure, says Trevor. I'm the lodger on your uncle's farm. I'm very sorry about his passing. I was with him right up till the very last moments, and he spoke very fondly of you. But I gathered that the solicitors will have told you about the conditions and those things. The young man looks at Trevor, trying to gauge, because he would actually know his uncle better than he had for many years. He, of course, says to Trevor, I take it you know about it as well. I just want to assure you that whatever happens, obviously, you're welcome to stay until we figure out what the situation is. Good, says Trevor, because I reckon you might need a bit of help here in the beginning, and I've been helping out your uncle for quite a few years now. As his health was deteriorating, he insisted on keeping going, but he found himself in need of more and more help. Says the young man. Yes, I never really knew how sick he was, and the news of his death came very much as a shock to me, but I'm sorry about being late and everything. Don't worry about it, says Trevor. It's not like a whole lot happens out here, so I didn't mind popping down In fact, there's already 2 packs of fish and chip lying in the car. How about we head up to the farm and we eat them while they're still warm? The young man agrees, and Trevor signals to the old van here. Gets in and motions for the young man to jump into the truck as well before they set off up towards the Ballincraig Estate farm. It's dark this time of year, says Trevor, and some of the cars still go frightfully fast around here. But we're almost there. I take it you remember. The young man feels a little bit apprehensive, but he does recognize the entrance just as they pull up to it. But it is very dark around, generally speaking, so Trevor just laughs it off and says, "Don't worry about it." Here we are, and they pull up to a completely different house than the young man remembers. In fact, it's a much newer and much nicer house. "Ah, your uncle had this built a few years ago," says Trevor. "So, don't worry, I live in the old house that's over by the stables, but this is your house, for now at least. So how about we go in and get some food?" A little while later, after having finished their dinner, Trevor bids his farewell. He has explained a little bit that the farm did hit on pretty hard times during the last couple of years, where his uncle's health was getting pretty bad, but they're gonna get going at it. The young man has explained to Trevor that he really isn't quite sure whether this is a future for him, but he has agreed to at least stay on for a little while for the first week or so, just to see how things are going. He's learned that the farm has cattle, but that last year they actually had to buy in additional silage in order to be able to feed the cattle throughout the winter. And this year really is about, in many ways, resurrecting the farm and keeping it going. It's a modest income from milk, and the solicitors really didn't give the young man any money. There was a very small stipend of £6,000 given to him for the year, basically to cover his own living expenses and fuel costs, but really not enough to think about modernizing the farm or anything like that. "Well," says Trevor, "it's time for me to head over to my house, and I'll see you in the morning, and we'll get cracking on some farming." So they bid each other goodnight, and Trevor walks over to his house, which is literally right around the corner here, where he lives in a rather old building. It takes a few firm knocks on the door from Trevor before the young man scrambles up and opens the window, sees Trevor standing fully dressed and ready for the day. He invites him in for a cup of coffee, but Trevor's pretty eager to get going, so he drains it pretty quickly and signals to the young man, "Come on, it's time that I gave you a tour of the farm." So they walk off together, while Trevor explains a little bit about the state of the farm. Basically, as you can see, we got cows in the back, and we got a decent enough herd to make a bit of money off. Right now, they're a bit on slim living, he says. Fresh out of bedding for them, and we only got some silage bales that we bought off a farmer, he says. We need to get them cleaned out today, as you can see. There's a bit to attend to, and ideally we do need to try and find out if we can buy some straw bales. It's still pretty cold weather. There's a stack of silage bales sitting up here in the hill, and we've got a mug spreader sitting there. Here's one of the tractors, says Trevor. I haven't really made it very far, but we do need to get the ground broken on this one and start getting some seed in as well. The young man looks a little surprised. He actually recognizes this tractor from many years ago when he was here. It looks like it's been well taken care of, but nevertheless, it's a tractor even without a cab. Starting to wonder whether he's brought enough warm clothes for the kind of work. Trevor takes him up the ramp. Here's our silage clamp, he explains. There's the cutter. We tip it in here. As you can see, it's completely bare. The young man suddenly starts to feel pretty much out of his depth. That's a big hole to be filling right there and then. And looking around, he so far has really only seen an old tractor and some silage bales and some cows and a water trailer. Oh, here's a grain trailer. We do a bit of grain as well, but we really slowed down on that last year and hardly got any done at all, explains Trevor. But here's the pride of your fleet. Oh, the young man actually looks a bit more enthusiastic about this one. It's got a cab, it's heating, got a front loader, and there are tools and things to actually maintain things as well. There's an old bale trailer, and here's another Massey. It doesn't have a cab on, it's got a decent amount of engine power though. And in behind it we can see there's a really old sewing machine, ancient in fact. Well, couldn't afford to replace everything, explains Trevor. There's an old sprayer, a baler that creates really small bales, and some kind of pretty old looking combine harvester that he can't really get through to. Trevor explains a bit about the fields that currently belong to the farm, and it actually turns out that even in the years after the young man arrived on the farm, he'd been buying up extra land, so there's actually a decent amount of land to go with it. Trevor explains that the first priority really would be to start getting the ground broken up on the top field there, and start getting sowing done. There's another field down the road in towards the village that Trevor managed to get completely ploughed, and so that one is basically ready as well. But there's still more work to do, and then immediately after that, Trevor says, we gotta cut grass as soon as we can and start trying to make some silage and be able to feed the cows, because what little silage was there, that's gonna run out. Good news is, your uncle had left enough money that we could buy some seeds for the old machine there here in the back of the truck. So why don't you get cracking? Try and see if you can get the cultivator going, and I'll just check in on the cows, says Trevor. Well, the young man first of all pops into the house and gets an extra coat, because sitting on that old tractor is certainly going to be a bit cold. But there's nothing for it, he says. I've shown up. Trevor clearly still expects me to run this farm. I really don't know about this, but I did love this place as a child. It's just all a bit much right on everything that's happened, but I suppose let's see if this thing will even start. Oh, it's purring like a kitten. It's almost as if just sitting in the seat of a tractor brings back a lot of memories, both muscle memory and happy moments here on the farm. And before you know it, the young man has started cultivating his first field here on Ballincraig Estate. couple of hours with cold fingers, numb limbs from sitting in the exposed tractor pulling an ancient cultivator over the ground. The young man looks down over the field, and although he is tired and cold and feeling a bit sorry for himself, he also feels an immense sense of satisfaction seeing the field out in front of him, realizing this is his work, and that he has worked through this field and readied it for the harvest to come. The long time on the tractor going back and forth has given him time to think about his situation as well. Didn't really have a fantastic job back in the city that he was leaving behind. He had an agreement with his boss that basically, to begin with, he would spend 2 weeks holiday. He would go and find out what it was all about, and then the intention was really that he was gonna return to the city. But there was already a feeling starting to seep into the young man that maybe this felt more like home. Maybe this was really something that he actually could do. He felt good about himself. He felt good of having achieved something right here, this very first morning after arriving. Looking out over the beautiful landscape, he allowed himself to pause, hop out for a moment, enjoy the fruits of his labor. That is, until he heard Trevor shouting that it was time for lunch. And that's where we're leaving the young man here on Ballincraig Estate for episode 1. I hope you liked the story so far. If you do hit that like and subscribe button, and more episodes will follow. But for now, thank you very much from Overcord Gaming, and see you again soon.